To know more about PENTAX Medical's commitment to infection prevention, read more about our hygiene commitment on our website.
Is Dr. Lionel Pineau, who's here with me in the studio. Welcome. How are you today?
I'm fine, thanks. It's a real pleasure to be with you today.
Great to have you here. I understand you're going to talk about the power of endoscope drying to minimize the risk of infection. And after that, we'll have a quick question. And I suggest you start your presentation. The floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. So the main objective of my presentation is to speak about the risk of bacterial proliferation inside endoscope, and more specifically, if I can have just a presentation on the screen, please. Thank you very much. So the objective is to discuss the importance of endoscope drying to minimize the risk of infection in endoscopy. As you know, water is essential for life, and we need water for mainly all our activities in a daily basis. But we know also that sometimes water may create problems. It's definitely the case for medical device reprocessing, where residual water creates sometimes opportunity for growth of microbial organisms, and this is a real problem for already disinfected or sterilized device. But we also know that this water can interfere with some disinfection or sterilization process. It's a well-known problem for ethylene oxide or hydrogen peroxide plasma sterilization system. But this water can also create damages on the device, for example, corrosion. And the most important, and this will be the main part of my discussion, is the bacterial proliferation inside endoscope channel during this storage time. So I will focus now on endoscope reprocessing and the problem of water inside endoscope channel. But before starting, I would like to share with you some important information regarding the quality of the endoscope. As you know, we have only few data regarding this quality and the percentage of endoscope contaminated after reprocessing. And we don't know if we are really doing good job when we reprocess them. The follow-up study performed in our laboratory since 2004 will give us some information about the quality of endoscope, at least in France. We have performed a lot of sampling, close to 100,000, which is a huge number. As you can see in this picture, this quality this study started in 2004, and we found in 2004 that approximately 20% of the endoscope were considered to be contaminated. That means with at least pathogen bacteria or more than 100 colony forming unit per endoscope, which is a huge number. And this quality is improving year after year, but we still have in 2021 13% of endoscope considered to be contaminated. Of course, we can spend a long time to discuss what could be the best target value for endoscope quality. But I think that 13% of endoscope contaminated is still a huge amount of endoscope with a high risk, and we still have to work to reduce this risk. Another very important information given by this study is the nature of the bacteria found inside the endoscope when we sampled them. In fact, we found 37% of bacteria found inside the endoscope are waterborne bacteria, indicating that there is a huge risk, or there is still water inside the endoscope, and there is a huge risk to form biofilm. And this risk of biofilm formation in endoscope channel is well established by some papers, including the Pineau paper published in 2004. And Pineau in this paper clearly demonstrate that about 38% of the endoscope were contaminated by the biofilm. And Pineau conclude that routine cleaning procedure do not remove biofilm, and that we still have to work to improve this reprocessing procedure and avoid bacterial proliferation inside endoscope channel. And in the last part of this paper, clearly Pineau mentioned that drying is probably one of the key aspects of the reprocessing procedure. There is also other paper published in the literature. One of the most important, or one of the most interesting one is the one published by Ofsted in 2018. And Ofsted clearly also indicate that fluid remains in endoscope after reprocessing. In this study, Ofsted found that 39% of the endoscope were still contaminated by fluid or bioburden or something remaining in the endoscope after endoscopic processing, which is a huge amount of endoscope which are not perfectly clean. And Ofsted, like Pashkos in the past, definitively conclude that we need to improve our reprocessing procedure, and we need to improve probably the drying stage to eliminate all the risks to have this debris or moisture remaining inside the endoscope channel. Another study, and a study published in our laboratory early in 2008, when we start working on endoscope storage and drying cabinet, we clearly also demonstrate that there is a high risk of bacterial proliferation inside endoscope channel if you store endoscope which are not perfectly dry. We also demonstrate that if you store an endoscope in a well-designed storage cabinet, well-designed storage and drying cabinet, you may reduce the risk and you may control the quality of the endoscope, and at least maintain the quality obtained after the disinfection stage. As you can see on this figure, if you store the endoscope outside the cabinet, you increase the contamination level of the endoscope of at least 1 log, which is 10 times more than the initial contamination level. On the opposite, if the endoscope is stored inside a well-designed system, you can reduce the contamination up to 4 logs, which is a huge reduction. And we also have the same result with some other endoscope in this study. In fact, there is many papers published in the literature insisting or demonstrating that drying is critical, and then that we have to fight against the risk of bacterial proliferation inside endoscope. And it's well summarized by the paper published by Musarella, which make the list or try to list all recommendations existing in the world. And definitively you can see that alcohol flushing or drying are part of all existing guidelines in the world. This is the case for the European guideline, the ESG guideline published in 2018, where the expert and over time clearly highlight the fact that drying is a key aspect and that contamination of endoscope occurs when the drying is not perfectly done after the reprocessing. They also insist on the fact that if a non-vertical storage is chosen, special attention will be needed to ensure that no residual moisture will cause recontamination of the endoscope. This is a very important thing. This is exactly the same with the HTM 0106 published in 2016, where they also mentioned 2 options for endoscope after reprocessing. You can store the endoscope in a simple storage cabinet, which just prevents the contamination of the endoscope for contaminated surface, or you can decide to use a more complex device, which is a controlled environmental storage cabinet, which need to be compliant with the EN standard 16442. And this standard 16442, it's the first standard published in Europe about storage cabinet, storage and drying cabinet. It was published in 2015 based on a work item proposed by France in 2010. In this document, the endoscope storage cabinets are designed to provide a controlled environment for the storage of endoscope with or without channel, and if necessary, drying of the endoscope. The control environment provided by the endoscope storage cabinet ensured that during storage, the microbial quality of the endoscope will remain the same, or at least the same that after reprocessing, and we will not have any contamination during storage. Today, we have a lot of different systems existing on the market, a lot of different endoscope storage cabinets available on the market. But we also have few other systems, slightly different. Some of them some experts call them portable systems, which are designed to store and or dry this endoscope. And the plasma Typhoon is one of them. Unfortunately, the process using chemicals for drying and maintaining the quality of endoscope during storage, are excluded from the EN 16442. And unfortunately, another time, even if some country would like to revise this document and include this process, it was not the case, and we are still in a situation where we have no standard for this portable system. Nevertheless, manufacturer claims in terms of drying or in terms of maintaining the quality of the endoscope need to be demonstrated. And we can, of course, use this standard to demonstrate the efficacy of this system. It's exactly what is mentioned in the French guideline published in 2016, where the Health French Ministry clearly indicate that this manufacturer need to demonstrate the efficacy of this portable system using the existing standard, even if they are not included in this standard. And the situation is exactly the same in UK, where the HTM 0106 clearly indicate that portable system manufacturers need to demonstrate the efficacy of their system using the existing standard, using the 16442 standard. And they also mentioned that periodic validation of such system is required to verify performance. So what we have in this standard, what kind of test can we perform to demonstrate the efficacy of portable system? It's quite simple. In fact, we use endoscope surrogate, which is an endoscope made with some tubes, or we use real endoscope, and we have to define some families, but it's really more complicated to explain. It's very simple. We contaminate this endoscope with 15 ml of a suspension containing about 10 to the 3 CFU per ml. Then we maintain this endoscope for a defined time according to the instruction for use. Then we purge with air, and we store the endoscope for 12, 24, 48, etc. until the end of the maximum storage time defined by the manufacturer. And after storage, we sample the endoscope and verify the quality of this endoscope. And the interpretation criteria are very simple. We need to have no increase in the contamination level of the endoscope, and we need to demonstrate a positive change in the contamination level of this endoscope compared to endoscopes stored outside the cabinet. And it's exactly what we have done with the Plasma Typhoon system. The first test done on this system, on the Plasma Typhoon Plus, was done with a very specific storage cycle, a 30-second storage cycle, on a very complex device, a very complex endoscope device. And what we demonstrate here is that if you contaminate the endoscope and then store the endoscope inside this, or using this Plasma Typhoon system, you decrease the contamination rate of about 4 logs, between 3.5 to 4.5 logs. Whereas the same endoscope stored, or just not stored, but just dry using the actual procedure, just with medical grade air, we of course observe a reduction, but only a 1 log reduction, which is not a lot. So this first test clearly demonstrates that the Plasma Typhoon is able to give us a better result in terms of maintaining the quality of the endoscope compared to the standard medical grade air drying. The other test series done is quite comparable. We are using the same endoscope, but for a shorter storage time, 180 seconds. And the results are exactly the same. We clearly demonstrate that when you are using the Plasma Typhoon system, you observe no growth inside the endoscope, and you reduce the contamination for up to 4 logs, which is a huge reduction. On the opposite, if the endoscope are only dry with medical grade air and stored horizontally, we observe a huge growth of bacteria inside the channel, and we demonstrate clearly an increase in the contamination up to 4 logs. So another time, this test clearly demonstrates the interest of such system. And as a conclusion, I would like to say that Plasma Typhoon and the plasma bag system has at least the same efficacy than conventional storage cabinet in terms of drying and in terms of maintaining the microbiological quality of endoscope. But this process or this system present also some other advantages, like the very fast cycle. You just need 1 to 5 minutes to dry the endoscope and therefore prevent the biofilm. It's an active storage of endoscope which allow you to maintain the quality of the endoscope up to 41 days. And it's also a controlled and safe transport system for endoscope, for example, after maintenance, or if you decide to go for the centralization of your reprocessing unit. Thank you very much for your attention.
That's great, Dr. Pineau. Thank you very much for that comprehensive presentation. Before we go on to the next one, just a question here. Now, in your view, do you think that drying is still an underestimated step in reprocessing around Europe?
Oh, it's a very interesting question, in fact. We know that drying is very important. We are making a lot of effort to increase the quality of this stage, but unfortunately, some new technology are missing. We need new technology to improve this stage and to reduce the risk of bacterial proliferation. And definitely, plasma Typhoon is a good example of a new technology. We spend years to try to develop endoscope washer disinfector, and we need half an hour to dry an endoscope, and with this system we just need 1 to 5 minutes. So definitively we need to work more and hardly on new technologies.
Got it. Thank you very much. Great stuff. Thank you for your presentation.
Thanks.